All right, now pick 12, sixth quarterback off the boards, Bo Nix, going to the Denver Broncos. Let's be honest about what this felt like at the time. First off, the Raiders are sitting there at pick 13 with just as much of a quarterback need as the Broncos. The Broncos felt like we were questioning, is this just, hey, we're stuck, we don't want to wait, Raiders might take him, he's the next quarterback on the board, it's Bo Nix. At the time, Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. were projected as maybe second round type of players, late first if a team is desperate or whatever, but Bo Nix goes at 12 and has a really nice rookie season, and Denver now looks like a franchise on the rise, whereas last year at this time didn't have a ton of talent. We're coming off a bad year, and they got the sixth quarterback out of 6, and it felt like an afterthought. But Denver, I think, thrilled with what Bo Nix did as a rookie.
Yeah, so it's weird because like he was generally seen as a consensus, fringe first round or early second round type of player. On the other hand, he did pop up a lot in first round mock drafts to Denver at pick number 12 because Denver needed a quarterback and he might be the the next one available at the point they were drafting. And it was a good stylistic fit of Bo Nix going to a Sean Payton offense. Like it did. So most people, when they were doing mock drafts a year ago, would have had both Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. available when Denver were picking, but Bo Nix was the more stylistic fit mesh with Sean Payton. So it was interesting when they did make that pick eventually. On the one hand, you can look at it and say, well, if you buy everything they're selling, they being Denver and Sean Payton, they looked in his backpack. There was nothing but football stuff in there. He's our guy, right? If you're buying everything they're selling, you're like, well, they identified their guy months out. He was the dude the whole way. They're ecstatic with this pick. Or you can say they are a classic example of simply needing a quarterback and having to grab the next guy. And that's why they all go in the first round. And if the guy doesn't go in the first round, he's not seen as a starter because teams that need starters have to take them as soon as they have the shot. So it was difficult to figure out where in that narrative Denver actually fit. And then early in the season, like he starts the season and he looked like crap for the first couple of games. He had like 4 interceptions, no touchdowns, no production. It was all looking rough. We're like, wow, maybe they shoehorned this pick and they're going to regret that. But then the journey he went on over the season, where like early in the year, there's not a lot of production. Really, the best thing he's bringing to the table is his athleticism and scrambling and making plays with his legs and, leading the team in rushing over and over again. But late in the year, he was cooking. And suddenly you're like, wow, maybe Bo Nix was actually legit. And the ceiling for him is, higher than anybody saw coming. And suddenly he looks like a baller. And I mean, again, another guy where I think you have to be really excited by what he can be in a situation that wasn't great. Like the receivers outside of Cortland Sutton weren't particularly good. There was a lot wrong with that environment. And yet he looked really good as the season progressed and, was on an upward arrow over the course of the year.
Yeah, and it's such a winding career, too, because we talked about Bo Nix as a prospect where I described him as going from a Jay Cutler style to an Alex Smith style over the course of his Auburn career to his Oregon career. He went from, freelancing, gunslinger type to, oh, this dude doesn't turn the ball over. Turnover worthy play percentage is super low. Average depth of target is really low. I think you're right. The arrow's pointed up. I'm gonna explain both sides of it really quickly, though. I think the deep ball was fantastic down the stretch. Remember a couple of those passes he made against the Bengals on the Saturday game, the Marvin Mims touchdown. His ability to get the ball down the field was fantastic. His intermediate passing grade, this is where, like, when he started out slow, the intermediate passing, the timing and accuracy was all over the place. Still ended up with a 54 grade on 10 to 19-yard throws. That is when most quarterbacks, that's where they make their money, really. 10 to 19 yards, right? Your seam routes, your out cuts, your digs. He wasn't doing that. 54 PFF grade is awful at that level. 0 big time throws, 10 turnover worthy. That's still a concern going forward for Nix.
All right, that's enough of that, Steve. Over 50% of the people listening to this are not subscribed right now. So click that button and then we can get back to whatever it is Steve's telling you about.
But then on the other side, what you mentioned about his running ability and his ability to pick up first downs and to do all of this without a running game. The other thing I was encouraged by was Sean Payton. We kept describing him as starting to feel it a little bit in the second half. I thought his comfort level with Nix running the offense really took off in the second half to the point where they were moving players around, creating mismatches. I thought Payton looked like a good play caller for the first time since his Saints days, where he wasn't doing that with Russell Wilson and maybe first half of the year Bo Nix. So I think there's a lot to be encouraged by with Nix. I think there's still a little buyer beware going forward on him. The intermediate passing is one. The other part is like, I know people are like, oh, the stats. He had this many. I don't even know what his touchdown interception ratio was. He was inflated a little bit with a nice 4-touchdown game at the end of the year against Kansas City's backups playing for nothing. So the overall stat line is going to be a little inflated for the rookie. Hear me, Perna. I'm not trashing your guy, Bo Nix. I'm just telling you, don't throw Bo Nix's stats out there. He had a game against backups the same way J.J. McCarthy did in the preseason, the same way Joe Milton did against the Bills. All right? I'm just saying the stat line's not telling the whole story, but the upward trajectory of Bo Nix's game in the second half of the season and kind of holding his own against the Bills, even though the Bills ended up running away with it. They hung tough in there, and I thought Nix did a nice job in the one playoff game.
Nix is the thing that he brought to the table, though. I sort of broadly bucketed it as the athleticism and scrambling earlier, in particular when he was under pressure. Like we talked earlier about Caleb Williams, the only guy worse in the NFL in terms of pressure to sack rate for Caleb Williams was Will Levis. Levis was at 30%. Caleb Williams was at 28%. Bo Nix was at 13%, right? 13 is a almost league leading level of like impressive play under pressure. When he was pressured, like he had an incredible ability to scramble for positive yardage. He averaged 9.4 yards per attempt scrambling, which is 2 yards more than Jaden Daniels, right? So like Jaden Daniels are coming out of it being like, this dude is one of the best scrambling quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the best rushing threats in the league, period. Bo Nix averaged 2 more yards per scramble when he took off from pressure, right? Yes. So not, when he just sees it, right? When the gap opens up, the A gaps part, everyone's rushing to the edge, and suddenly the C's part in front of him, you're like, I'm just going to take these free yards. When in particular, when he is forced out of the pocket because of pressure, Bo Nix was finding 10 rushing yards every time effectively. That's insane. Like that's incredibly impressive from him.
And I thought a big coming out party for him was at Kansas City, week 10. Remember, they should have beaten the Chiefs if they didn't have a field goal blocked. And that was Bo Nix when Spags was in his bag the whole first half of the season, especially on third down, especially on gotta have it plays. And Bo Nix was making big time plays, converting first downs, getting the Broncos into game-winning field goal range. Again, a lot to be encouraged by Nix. And I will say, I did predict, hey, if someone's going to have success early, it's Bo Nix. It didn't go in the exact pattern that I was thinking. But at the end of the season, it's like, yeah, the most experienced college quarterback of all time, till Dylan Gabriel, had success as a rookie. While, some of the other quarterbacks like Caleb Williams or Drake May were 3-and-out type of players, shouldn't be terribly shocking. And as the pendulum maybe swings back to experience for a lot of quarterbacks. So really impressive rookie season by Bo Nix. And I think the Broncos feeling pretty good about their situation going forward.
Yep. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.